Hey, welcome back to the channel and welcome back into my kitchen. Today and over the next few days, there are a few little projects that I've been wanting to tackle in the kitchen, and now that Christmas and Thanksgiving are over, I'm kind of winding down and have a little bit more time to do that. So I thought I'd bring you along with me so that you can maybe get some ideas or just hang out in the kitchen with me as I get some things done. The first thing I'm going to work on today is I have a bunch of breakfast sausage logs that are 2 pounds each that I want to go ahead and get cooked so that they are frozen in the freezer in flat Ziploc bags so that it's very easy for me on the fly to make anything that I want to with breakfast sausage. And for some reason, some of the batches that I have not had enough spices for our taste, so I'm going to add sage, etc., whatever I want to add to it to make it to our taste. And I'm also like hot. They don't sell the hot in the 2 pound packages. I don't know why. This is Texas. We love hot food, but they don't. And so I'm gonna add red pepper flakes to it as well, so it kicks it up a notch for us. I'm gonna open these up and get them into my oven. I have my meat masher out that I'm going to use to mix up the sausage with the spices and get it down into a fine crumble for putting into the freezer. I'm going to pull out some sage as well as some onion powder, a little bit of garlic powder, the red pepper flakes that I talked about, and mix that in and then see how it looks after I've got those blended in together and go from there. It's a lot of sausage that I'm mixing up. I've got to play by ear how much I'm going to add. All right, let's get these seasonings added in and let it cook. Now that we have our masher over here with our spices, we're going to add in quite a bit of sage because it gives you that classic breakfast sausage flavor. And then I'm going to add a little bit of onion powder and a tiny amount of garlic powder just to boost the flavor profile a little bit since it is lacking. And then again, of course, the peppers for extra spice that we like. I am going to do this to how it looks right because since the meat is raw, you can't taste it until it's over, but I don't want to add the seasonings afterwards because they need to blend while it's cooking. So you do your best that you can. You don't want to go overboard and have it completely full of the spice because that's going to be too much. And as you see things and you're cooking things, you'll get a feel for what it's supposed to look like. I did all my recipes by the recipe for so many years, especially the first time I make something, because I want to see what it's supposed to look like and what it's supposed to taste like per the author of that recipe. And then I'll take it and I will tweak it and make it my own. I'll add more salt if it needs it. I'll add more chili powder if I think it needs a little zip or something, but you'll get to know what you like the taste of and you'll feel more comfortable with on the fly, like I'm about to do, adding in your flavor profile. So have fun in the kitchen. If you think you're gonna go too far, don't do so much. Just add a little bit and then you'll know for next time you can add a little bit more. It just lets you know what you like. I know this is gonna look like a lot right now because it's on the top, but keep in mind I'm going to be mashing this and mixing it in, so it's going to kind of disappear on you a little bit, but it smells so yummy in here with this fresh sage. I've got some fresh from my garden, so they're a little bit chunkier, and so I'm just kind of squeezing that and mashing it up as I'm adding it. It releases those oils from the sage leaves. It makes it so good. Now I've got a 1 tablespoon measure that I'm going to use. I'm going to do the peppers first because they don't have the powder. I don't want to get the onion powder or the garlic powder into my peppers, so I'll do it next. I like to sprinkle my spices over what I'm doing because it spreads it out and lets me get that visibility of how much I'm adding instead of just piling it right there, because you don't get a good idea of how much you're adding into your dish. When you spread it out all over the place, it lets you get a good feel for how much you're adding and lets you know. And again, that looks like a lot, but that's a lot of sausage that I've added in there. I think that will be plenty. Like I said, I'm not going to do much garlic. I just want it in the background because garlic is pretty powerful. I can always add a little bit more later if I need to, if I feel like. I'll do a taste test at the end once it's fully cooked and see if I need to add some more, but I don't think I'm going to need to. And then our onion powder. I think I'm going to do a couple of tablespoons of that to give it a good flavor. Yeah, that's going to be great. Okay, so now all I need to do is mash this up to start mixing it, and I will come back periodically as it's cooking to continue to mash it, get it smaller and smaller, and keep it from sticking to the bottom until it's fully cooked, and we'll continue on with the next step. You can see as I'm mixing this just how well it is getting incorporated into the meat and kind of starting to disappear. All right, we will leave this here to cook for quite a while. We'll come back and stir it again after probably about 45 minutes to an hour just to keep up with it. I've got it heated up now, so I'm going to turn the heat down to about 250 to kind of slow cook it so I don't burn it. And I think it's going to turn out beautifully. Okay, let's cover this up and we'll be back. So our meat is done now, and I am going to give it another stir real quick, and then I'm going to put it in my strainer with a bowl underneath it to catch the grease, which I will be saving. Since I haven't done this before, I'm not sure if I'm going to enjoy using it to add some extra flavor to the dishes, but I'm going to keep it and try it and see how we like it. But we've all sampled it and it tastes delicious, perfect on the flavors, the different seasonings that I added. Don't need to do any alterations whatsoever. I'm gonna bring this close just so that it's easier and makes less of a mess. And then I'm gonna leave it to strain out the grease for about 30 to 45 minutes or so before I come back and start bagging it up for the freezer. When it starts getting full like this, I like to kind of push the meat around to the edges so that it fills up the container, and I can kind of pile it up a little bit easier and neater. When you do it, when the pile is higher, it tends to want to spill out. We're gonna let this batch strain for about 30 minutes or so, and then I will come back and get it bagged up and do the rest. All right, we're back. It's been about 30 or 40 minutes, and we're going to check on the meat to make sure it has strained out, and it looks like it's good to go. I'm now going to move over to this other countertop to work on bagging it up so I have a little bit more space to work. Over here on our bagging area, we have our Ziplocs ready to go. I'm using the 1 quart size. That's a nice size to work with. It is a decent portion size. I have a larger family. I have 5 people that I'm feeding, so we put about 2 cups of each of the meats that we bag like this into each bag. That's about 2 pounds worth of pre-cooked meat, approximately. You can do 1 cup for 1 pound if you have a smaller portion size that you need. And if you need to go even smaller than that, if you're an individual, I'll show you a little tip that you can do to maximize your bag usage and you're not wasting as much plastic. Now I also have these little Ziploc bag holders to help you more neatly bag it. You just fold the arms up and you can adjust these for the gallon size, quart size, whatever you need. Lay it down and pull out your bag. Open up your bag. And then you slide up each side into these little clips that are right here, and it holds it nicely for you. 1 cup and 2 cups. I found if you put it in a bigger bag and try to break it up later, it can be a little bit more challenging to get the right amount of meat that you need. So that's why I favor quart size bags over gallon, unless you're going to do a huge amount. So now that we're ready to bag this up, we're going to remove it, push this out of the way. I'm going to squeeze out as much air as I can, roll it up and close it, squeezing it out the air. And I'm going to flatten it back out using my knuckles usually to kind of flatten that out. And that trick that I was telling you about, if you're an individual and you need smaller portions but don't want to waste bags, is you can actually do a line in the meat like this. You can do 2 lines if you need. It makes it thinner here so that whenever you go to break it off, it comes off cleanly and you can just take out that portion. You could do that in a bigger bag if you wanted. It's just a little bit easier to deal with, manage on this. You could go across if you needed to. It just helps you to break it off. We don't need to do that though, so I'm just gonna do mine pretty flat. You'll notice I'm using 4 of these bag holders. I do this so that I can do more of an assembly line. It helps me to go a little bit faster and not have to go and swap out the bag every single time. It just helps the process. Something else that I have to do, if the meat is really hot, you'll see steam on the inside of the bag that becomes ice later. So I like to let that cool off and some of that steam to evaporate before I close up the bag. So if you're noticing that, just set the bags aside, let them cool off for a little bit longer, and then you can do the process of bleeding the air out and closing them up. And then again, the flattening part is important for later. You know how it is whenever you have a new package of ground beef that is thick, it takes a long time to thaw, whereas this I can put into my pan and it is very, very quick to thaw if it's frozen and go into the mix without taking a long time to mix into your dish. It makes it so much easier whenever you're cooking. Something that may help you is to scrape like this away from the edge where it's piled up, so that as you're scooping it up, it won't flow over towards you. I've run into that problem before. So I just find scraping it away, it loosens it back up and it makes it easier to scoop and pour into your bag. I just have a tiny amount left in the bowl, so what I like to do with that is just kind of spread it out so that it's not making one bag more full than the other. The fat that I'm getting from my sausage, that I get from my bacon that I keep, I use it for a myriad of different things. Any place where you use fat, for example, butter or olive oil, you can use this, and it just depends on what flavor profile. Bacon is kind of an obvious, everybody loves bacon. Sausage we want to do a little bit more subtly. I obviously can use it in anything I'm already cooking sausage in. You could also add it into a stuffing kind of recipe that has a little sausage, or that you want a sausage flavor without the meat. It would give it a richer depth of flavor. You could add it into a meatloaf if you wanted to kind of add a little twist in there. Any place where you'd have a natural fat, you could add this in its place and saute your onions, and it would bring that richness of flavor in there. Saute your vegetables. It doesn't just have to be onions, whatever you're making. And so I recommend that you try it. I have loved, since I've done bacon grease and I'm adding this, having that flavor in there. It just is so comforting and it's so delicious. So have fun and try it. The reason I scraped out the bottom of the bowl with the grease is to get all of it out so you have it to use. You don't want to waste it because it is very delicious and it is very valuable. But you also have little bits of the tiny pieces of sausage or bacon, whatever you're making, that have fallen through, and those will add just a little bits of goodness extra to your dish that you're making. And you don't have to worry about the bacon in there going bad. I don't strain mine, and the fat actually encapsulates the bacon bits and it preserves it because the oxygen isn't getting into it. So you're good to go. Some of this is missing. TBK, did you come and get more sausage?
No.
Flashback.
Liar.
Why don't I believe you? All right, let's bring this close again and get to straining. Must have been really good.
It was freaking delicious. I mean, what?
What I like to do when I get to the end is lift this part out and start scraping it to one end. And again, start from one end and work your way down to save yourself from overlapping. And just like that, we've got the last bit going. So we'll let this do the same thing for about 30 to 40 minutes to strain, and then we will do the same process to bag it up and get it going, and then we'll flatten out all these bags. Have a little bit extra here. I think I'm going to treat Mr. TBK with a little snack. I think he'll appreciate that. He's doing a happy dance. I think I'm right. I'm going to pinch off right above the meat, fold the bag over, squeeze out as much of that air as you can get. That way it doesn't take up too much room in the freezer, but it also is going to help with preservation of the food. And mash it out with my knuckles to get as flat as you can. And it'll help it to stack well. And then you just repeat the process until you're done.
Need some help?
Sure, I'll be glad for the help. It makes the work go faster. Well, here we have it. We've got 24 quart-size bags with 2 cups each of the breakfast sausage meat that we cooked up. I can pull this out of the freezer and make a hearty, delicious, warm meal for my family in the morning. I'm also going to, before I put them in the freezer, label them with today's date and what is in the package so that in a few months I don't have to remember what I put in these bags. This is always a smart idea, always, even though it seems tedious to do this for 2 reasons. One, if you have ground beef or taco meat that you might do something similar, they start looking alike and you forget what you put in the bag. Trust me, you don't think it's gonna happen, but it will as months go on and things blend. But the second thing, and this is a blessing for yourself and your family or anybody who might come in and cook with you, is they now know what is in your bag and in your freezer, and they can go quickly grab it without having to guess. The same thing goes with your spices. A lot of people don't like to, when they're doing their cooking, to label their spices. Some things look alike, like your onion powder, your garlic powder and stuff. sugar, salt, those kind of things. And if somebody's coming into your kitchen to work with you or behind you to do something for you, you're making it so much easier for them to just grab things and go and be confident to let them know that that's what's in that jar, that that's what's in that bag, and make a delicious meal with no guesswork and not having to sit and smell and taste or any of those kind of things to figure out what you've put into a jar. So do yourself a favor for the long haul of helping to somebody else to come in and bless your kitchen. It might feel overwhelming to label things in your kitchen, but if you start small and start adding in and make a habit of it, it won't be overwhelming at all. It'll just be routine and you'll only be doing one at a time here and there. To make it easier to transport these bags to my freezer that I have outside on the porch, I'm going to use this basket that I usually store in my freezer and I just emptied out with the sausage rolls. So it's going to go back into the freezer. I like to stack them flat like this first until they're frozen. Then you can stand them up if that's what you prefer. All right, let's get this put into the freezer right here in the home. I like to use those baskets because they help keep those Ziploc bags nice and tidy and they don't fall all over the place, and I can easily find and grab what I need. These should store in the freezer for about 3 to 6 months on the long side. They should be perfectly fine and they're good to go. Enjoy. Pack some jars in.
You know, those packing companies, they need to use your recipe. Delicious.
Well, that gets all of the sausage taken care of. Thank you for joining me in the kitchen today for this project that I've needed to get done and help to fill up my freezer so I can feed my family. I hope you enjoyed it and learned something from it, and maybe you'll incorporate it into your routine in your kitchen and it'll bless you. Have a great day.